In this video, we're going to see Pete Buttigieg absolutely take apart Doge, Donald Trump, and Elon Musk for not focusing on efficiency, but plain and simply just being all about power. As usual, let's watch the video in full, and I'll give you my thoughts towards the end.
If Doge was actually about government efficiency, I'd be all for it.
But it's not about that.
No.
What is it about?
It's about power. Look, I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
Because
you telling me people in government are concerned with power?
I know. It's shocking.
Insane.
I know. Hot take.
Truth bombs being dropped on Flagrant.
No, but look at it this way. Yeah, when I was in government in South, like as mayor, when I had my kind of small government that I was running, we like took whole departments apart and put them back together. We removed people who weren't performing very well. And by the way, that was hard. Like one of the reasons I've always had a problem with this president is like he emerged kind of play acting, like firing people for fun, right? It was like his tagline is "You're fired." For me, at least, as like a young like CEO basically of a city government, other than dealing with violence and death, the worst part of my job was firing people. Like I hated it, especially because like it wasn't necessarily a bad person, but you had a person who was in a role that they didn't fit in and their department wasn't doing as well as I thought it needed to do to serve residents. I would have this very painful conversation where we'd sit down, I'd look them in the eye, and that sucked for obviously most of all for them. But anyway, we were not afraid to do that because you have to do that.
Yeah.
But look at what happened when they came in, right? If this is actually about government efficiency, then the problem you would be solving, which is a real problem, is that in the federal government, it is too hard to reward your top performers. So you could be somebody who could be commanding a multi-million-dollar salary in the private sector, working on something wildly important, but there's just no way that you're getting, you're in your particular pay grade, same as everybody else. Yeah. And to remove your bottom performance. Like a lot of people who've been in and out of business and government will tell me, like when I was in the private sector and the public sector, actually like the top 10% were pretty much the same, these amazing driven people. The government ones weren't compensated as well, but they were purpose driven. But the bottom 10% was completely different because I couldn't do anything about the bottom 10%. Right? So imagine if Doge had come in and they had gone through every department and said, okay, we're going to create a way to reward the top performers. And we're also going to analyze either whose job description is no longer needed, or their job performance is not there. And even though it's painful, even though maybe it's politically tough, like we're going to show them the door. That would be one thing. But they just sent an email to everybody. Many of whom were in fact top performers. Like some of the people they fired who got caught up in this thing, people got fired just based on whether you were in a category called probationary employee. But to be clear, probationary isn't like you fucked up and you're on probation.
Yeah, you could start.
You could actually be because you were promoted. You could be a 7-year veteran at the FAA, or maybe you'd been there as a contractor, but you were so good that the FAA said, we want to hire you now as a government employee. And even though it might have been a little pay cut, you went for it. And you're probationary. And then next thing you know, like you wake up one day and this office, department, whatever Doge is, clearly hasn't like gone through and checked like who's doing a good job or who's. There's no way because there wasn't even time to do that. And they're just like, guess what? You're fired. Too bad.
I think there's I wouldn't say unanimous support with the criticism of Doge, but I think that there is a lot of support for the way that it's been handled. Though I would also say that the idea of an agency that is attacking bloat and excess spending of the government is a bipartisan supported issue as well. I think initially when when Elon first announces this, and I think it's Elon and Vivek, people are really supportive of it, I think on both sides. They're like, let's cut some government spending.
No, if you're actually doing it for real, and that's another part of the answer to your question of like what Democrats should be talking about, because I think we're the ones who believe, some say we believe it to a fault, like we believe it naively, but we're the ones who believe that the government has if you do it right, government has the power to make people better off. But if we're going to do that, let's actually do it. And part of that does mean like taking a hard look at everything we do. And I remember, again, most of my examples will come from transportation, right? But I remember something that went on with the FAA where they had to get some special waiver in order to allow a certain class of airplane to fly because there was a regulation that said there had to be a switch to turn off the no smoking light. And this was written back when sometimes you turned off the no smoking light. Now, obviously, there's just always a no smoking light because you can't smoke on airplanes. And there's this like scramble. That's the kind of stuff that we should absolutely be getting rid of. And there are like things that we do in government sometimes, or in the military, we call it a self-licking ice cream cone. Like there's definitely things that are there that is just like self-perpetuating processes that nobody would have come up with on their own, but they're still there. I think we should absolutely own that space because we have a good faith belief that government should serve people better and should work better. And we should be the ones who are making that happen.
So on that, so this idea with Doge, it seems to me, and again, I only know like the most surface level version of it, is that the way that the government becomes more efficient is just firing a bunch of people. That seems just like saving money. I don't know if that's how it becomes more efficient. The efficiency is getting rid of the bureaucracy that stops a plane from flying just because it doesn't have an on and off switch for a smoking light, right?
But it's surgery because you don't want to get rid of the part of the bureaucracy that makes sure the planes don't crash. That is good and protects people.
Right? I 100%, because I think that there is altruism and benevolence in a lot of these policies, right? They're trying to protect people.
They're all there for some reason or another.
Yeah, and like maybe some is like, I don't know. What have you experienced? Like you were, Secretary of Transportation. Like when you're trying to rebuild some bridge or whatever like that, what was the biggest hiccup that you experienced that you're like, we got to just get this out of the way? There's no way we're going to be able to improve people's lives if this is here. What is an example of that?
Well, so there's an entire process where to permit a federal project, you have to listen to you have to take in every comment from anybody who wants to weigh in, and then you have to respond to every comment, or a human has to kind of review all of that. Which, by the way, one thing I'm really worried about is if you have, let's say there's some regulation coming and an industry wants to stop it, can they use
just keep
AI?
commenting.
Yeah, or can you use AI? Because it used to be like, well, you'd have to take the trouble to write a letter, or at least go to the trouble of like getting people to write form letters, right? Now you could write customized letters. It could all look different.
You use bureaucracy to fight bureaucracy.
Well, you use bureaucracy to stop something from happening. Which is a real problem if that's a thing that needed to happen, especially because you also need to go through that process to remove a regulation or to replace or to modernize it. So there's this level of pride, and I encountered it all the time.
So really, really brilliant by Pete Buttigieg on talking about Elon Musk, Doge, Trump, and exposing the fact that these guys don't care about efficiency. We've seen that with a lot of the things that these guys are talking about, they're just putting out random numbers, putting out random figures, just letting people know this is what's happening. We've saved this much, we've found this much, etc., etc., etc. But in reality, they're not exposing what's actually being done that's making the government less efficient. Now, in terms of the point that Pete Buttigieg made in regards to power, like this is something that we know. Like just to talk about a few points, if we take a look at the way that Doge is run, it's run in a very kind of top-down way. Elon Musk makes most of the decisions himself, and this obviously shows their focus on control and not about teamwork, not about sitting down and discussing ideas with a panel, with a group of individuals. It's all about him taking, look, this works, this doesn't, and a lot of people on the right are just taking his word for it just because of the fact that he's one of the, or if not the richest man in the world. The next way that it is that we can back up Pete Buttigieg's point in regards to it being about power is the mass firings and the sudden shutdown of government agencies that were done quickly. Now, if you think about mass firings and sudden shutdowns, for example, I worked for a company before and they had to go into, I can't remember what the actual term for it was, but I think it was something along the lines of negotiations when they were going to make people redundant, when they were going to let people go. People were given an opportunity about 3 months to be able to respond. These guys came in and almost instantly done a mass firings and were shutting down government agencies that have been formed for years. That just shows, once again, it's about power. It's not really about making the government more efficient as well. Now, we can also take a look at the fact that Doge keeps many of the details of what it is that they do a secret. Things like who works there, which makes it harder for people to check what's actually happening. And then also as well, where government wastage is actually happening and who's doing the waste so that people can be held accountable. Look, if somebody is wasting government money, the people's money, I definitely believe they should be held accountable. But at the same time, you can't just throw numbers and figures and stuff out there and say and act like people are wasting money. But the reality is they're actually not wasting money. That's something that needs to be addressed and it needs to be looked at as well. Okay. Now, One of the other things as well is that claims about saving money are exaggerated. And like I said, they're unproven. They're unproven. These guys are just putting things on. There's a Twitter account about Doge saying they found this much, that much, but there's no evidence or proof provided to back up what it is that they're actually saying. So they could just be putting any numbers out there and be putting anything out there whatsoever. And that's the reality. Elon Musk has a lot of his own people in charge of the government systems. And like I said, that is showing that it's about control rather than efficiency. The exact same way Donald Trump has a lot of his own people in charge of different departments, but they have to be loyal to him. The moment they don't show loyalty to Donald Trump, we all see exactly what happens. He cuts them off and he cuts them out. And that's what it is that we're seeing with this government that we're seeing now, this administration. Really, really good from Pete Buttigieg, as usual. Just wanted to play that clip and give you guys my thoughts. Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comment section down below. As you guys know, I always love to hear from you guys in terms of your opinion on the clip that it is that I play. If you're not subscribed to the channel, do me a massive favor, hit that subscribe button and also give the video a massive thumbs up. Purely for the YouTube algorithm. And while you're down there, turn on the bell notification so that you get notified every single time we upload a brand new video. With that being said, I'll see you guys in the next one.